If you got to raise taxes, you ought to do it in a way that works in a capitalist economy. So what we have suggested is education funding reform, which needs $3 billion in new money, can't be accomplished unless the state's fiscal system is fixed, and that's going to require tax reform. 3 elements of tax reform we think are utterly essential are an increase to the income tax rate, an expansion of the sales tax base, and targeted tax relief to low and middle income families. Those are the 3 things we think are essential. Why? For a tax system to work in a modern capitalist economy, it has to be fair, responsive, stable, and efficient. Those are the 4 things you need. Those are the 4 things economists look for, and they'd have to physically leave the state of Illinois to find any of them or over it. So we suggest reforming our tax system that way. 2 bills in to do that. One in the Senate called Senate Bill 750, put in by Reverend Senator Meeks. House Bill 855, put in Representative David Miller. They both do the same thing. They're mirror bills. First, the income tax. We increase it from 3% to 5%. That's the current personal rate. We go from 3 to 5. That will be called a 67% tax increase because 2, the change in rate, divided by 3, the existing rate is 67%. Okay? So I'm going to deal with it like it's a 67% tax increase. There are 41 states in the nation. Our current rate of 3% ranks that have an income tax. Our current rate of 3% ranks 41st. We're dead last. Moving it up by 67% to 5 points moves us up from last to 7th from last in rate, 34th. And our new rate becomes tied with that previously mentioned state that's so wonderful on education, Mississippi. But the big difference between us and Mississippi is we're the 5th richest state in the country. They are the poorest. So we raise billions in tax revenue they could only dream of in Mississippi if, in fact, they dream in Mississippi. I don't know that. There's no date. Second, we expand the sales tax base to include consumer services. Why? Currently, our sales tax only applies pretty much to the sale of goods. My vest, this, shoes, hard physical items you can touch. What we don't tax are services. Back in 1965, the sale of goods was about 36% of our economy, and the sale of services was 38%. Today, the sale of goods is only 12% of our economy. That's what we tax. The sale of services is north of 60% of our economy. That's what we don't. You cannot leave the largest and fastest growing segment of your economy out of your tax base and balance the budget. So yes, we expand the sales tax base to consumer services. Now this won't make us less competitive with our neighbors. I want to be very clear. Of the services we think we should be taxing, currently Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri tax anywhere from 30 to 60% of them, and Iowa and Wisconsin tax all of them and more. Iowa taxes virtually every service you can tax. And I don't know about you, but I haven't seen busloads of Iowans coming here to get their hair cut. Have you? Because they tax that in Iowa, we don't here. Now, if you've seen their haircuts in Iowa, you know they should, but they're not coming here for tax reasons. Then the final thing is to get some tax fairness into the system. Because here's one of the oddest things about Illinois. 5th biggest economy, 5th biggest population, we rank 45th in tax burden. We're low tax overall. But we're low tax overall for a really weird reason, because we're highly regressive. We undertax affluence and we overtax low and middle income families. So low and middle income folks all have the greatest tax burdens in our state, paying more than 10% of their income in state and local taxes. That's the bottom 60%. The wealthiest, say 1%, pay only 4.6% of their income in taxes, less than half the burden we place at the bottom and middle. Why that's a problem? We just look at census data, economic growth over the last 25 years, low and middle income families, that bottom 60%, have seen their incomes decline after inflation. That wealthiest 1%, income's up over 93%. We're simply not taxing where the economy is growing. That's not fair. It doesn't respond to the economy, and it forces people to pay taxes out of their growing poverty rather than people who pay taxes out of their growing wealth.